The most dangerous person in the room isn't the one who knows nothing. It's the one who knows just enough to believe they know everything. Have you ever met someone who was absolutely certain about something, despite having barely scratched the surface? Raise your hand if you've encountered that person. Truth is, we've all been that person at some point in our lives. That absolute certainty when we're actually standing on the thinnest ice of understanding. That's what psychologists call the Dunning-Kruger Effect. It's that fascinating paradox where the less someone knows about a subject, the more confident they often feel in their expertise. Consider this. When was the last time you felt completely confident about a skill or subject, only to discover later how much you truly didn't know? Think about that moment, that humbling realization. What fascinates me is that this pattern repeats itself throughout human history. The ancient Greeks understood this paradox thousands of years ago. Socrates was considered the wisest man in Athens not because he claimed to know everything, but precisely because he recognized how little he knew. "I know that I know nothing," he said. That admission, that awareness of his limitations, was the foundation of his wisdom. But we live in a world that rewards certainty, not doubt. We promote those who speak with confidence, not those who carefully acknowledge the boundaries of their knowledge. And this creates a culture where appearing knowledgeable often trumps actually being knowledgeable. I spent many years observing successful people, truly successful people, and do you know what separates them from the rest? It's not that they never experienced the Dunning-Kruger effect. It's that they've learned to recognize and overcome it. The path to wisdom begins with a simple admission, "I don't know." These three words might be the most powerful in your journey toward actual mastery and success. Not "I'm certain," not "I've got this figured out," but the humble admission that your understanding is incomplete. You see, your brain plays tricks on you. When you learn a little about a subject, you gain enough knowledge to recognize some basic patterns, but you haven't yet learned enough to understand how incredibly complex those patterns truly are. This creates an illusion of understanding, a dangerous confidence that can lead you down the wrong path. Think about the novice investor who reads one book on the stock market and suddenly believes they can outsmart Wall Street professionals with decades of experience. Or the person who watches a few videos on nutrition and starts dispensing medical advice as if they've completed years of specialized training. What's happening is simple but profound. When you know very little about a complex domain, you lack the knowledge to even recognize how much you don't know. The map in your mind is so simplified that you mistake it for the actual territory. I once met a young entrepreneur who had just started his first business. When I asked him about his challenges, he looked at me with complete confidence and said, "I've got it all figured out. My business plan is foolproof." 6 months later, his business had failed. Not because he wasn't intelligent or hardworking, but because his confidence had prevented him from seeking advice, recognizing problems, or adapting to market realities. The lesson: initial confidence often leads to complacency, while initial humility leads to growth. But here's where it gets interesting. As you continue learning, as you push past that first hill of knowledge, something remarkable happens. Your confidence actually decreases. This isn't a sign of failure, it's a sign of growth. Because now you're seeing the vastness of what you don't know. You're recognizing the complexity that was always there but was invisible to you before. This is what experts call the valley of despair. It's where many people quit. They think, "I was feeling so confident before, and now I feel lost. Maybe this isn't for me." But this valley is actually the gateway to true mastery. It's the necessary path everyone must walk to reach genuine expertise. Consider the martial arts student who, after earning their first belt, thinks they're ready to take on any opponent. After a few more years of training, that same student realizes how much more there is to learn. Their confidence in their fighting abilities might temporarily decrease, but their actual capability has dramatically increased. The question facing you right now is simple. Will you have the courage to push through that valley? Will you trade the comfort of false confidence for the temporary discomfort of acknowledging how much you don't know? I challenge you to think about an area in your life where you might be overestimating your expertise. It could be in your career, your relationships, your health routines, or your financial planning. Ask yourself, have I fallen into the trap of thinking I know more than I do? The beautiful paradox is that by acknowledging how much you don't know, you immediately become wiser than those who can't make that admission. You place yourself on the path to growth rather than stagnation. This brings me to the concept of intellectual humility, the ability to recognize the limits of your knowledge and be open to new ideas and information. Research shows that people with high intellectual humility are better problem solvers, more accurate in their self-assessments, and ultimately more successful in their endeavors. Why? Because they're constantly learning. They're not defending what they think they know. They're expanding what they actually know. I remember talking with a CEO of a Fortune 500 company, someone who by all conventional measures had made it. Know what he told me? He said, I spend at least 2 hours every day learning things I don't know, not reinforcing what I already believe, but specifically seeking out information that challenges my current understanding. That's the mindset of continuous growth. That's the antidote to the Dunning-Kruger effect. But intellectual humility isn't about thinking less of yourself. It's about being honest about where you stand on the continuum of knowledge. It's strength, not weakness. Now let's talk about how to develop this quality in practical terms. First, start asking more questions and making fewer statements. When you enter a conversation thinking, what can I learn here? Rather than what can I prove here? Everything changes. Your posture shifts from defensive to receptive. Your mind opens rather than closes. Second, surround yourself with people who know more than you do in various domains. Not yes men and yes women who reinforce your existing beliefs, but genuine experts who can expand your understanding. And when you're with these people, listen more than you speak. Third, develop the habit of questioning your own assumptions. When you find yourself absolutely certain about something, that's precisely the moment to step back and ask, what if I'm wrong? What evidence would change my mind? The ability to update your beliefs based on new information is a superpower in a world where many people become more entrenched in their positions regardless of evidence. Fourth, practice saying, I don't know without embarrassment. These words aren't a sign of weakness. They're the beginning of wisdom. They create space for growth where defensiveness would create stagnation. I've observed that the truly wise person, the one who achieves lasting success, embraces uncertainty. They're comfortable saying, based on what I currently know, this is my position, but I remain open to new information that might change my perspective. Think about how this applies to your life right now. Are you approaching your work with the mindset that you've mastered your field, or with the understanding that there's always more to learn? Are you entering relationships convinced you know how the other person thinks and feels? Or are you remaining curious about their inner world? Are you managing your finances based on assumptions you've never questioned? Or are you constantly educating yourself about new strategies and approaches? The quality of your life will be determined not by what you think you know, but by your willingness to admit what you don't. Consider this warning sign. If you find yourself feeling absolutely certain about complex subjects, especially those you've only recently encountered, your mental alarm bells should be ringing. That feeling of absolute certainty is often the peak of what experts call Mount Stupid, the highest point of confidence coupled with the lowest level of actual competence. Now don't misunderstand me. I'm not advocating for paralysis by analysis or suggesting you should never feel confident in your abilities. Rather, I'm suggesting that true confidence comes from acknowledging the boundaries of your knowledge while continuing to expand them. It's about balancing confidence with humility. Think of it this way. The master doesn't need to proclaim their mastery. Their expertise speaks through their actions, their results, and often through their measured, nuanced perspective on their own field. Something remarkable happens when you adopt this mindset of intellectual humility. You become less defensive. Criticism becomes valuable information rather than a personal attack. Feedback becomes a gift rather than something to fear. And failures become lessons rather than reflections of your worth. This shift from defending what you think you know to embracing what you can learn transforms not just your mind, but your entire life experience. But let me be clear, this path isn't easy. Our egos resist admitting ignorance. Our minds prefer the comfort of certainty over the discomfort of doubt. And our culture often rewards those who project unwavering confidence, even when that confidence is completely unfounded. Swimming against these currents requires courage. It demands that you value truth over comfort, growth over stasis, wisdom over the appearance of wisdom. I've seen people transform their lives by making this single shift. The struggling manager who finally admitted he didn't have all the answers and began learning from his team. The parent who acknowledged they didn't know everything about raising children and sought out new approaches. The investor who recognized the limits of their knowledge and consulted experts before making major decisions. In each case, What looked like a step backward, an admission of incomplete knowledge, was actually a massive leap forward. So ask yourself, where in your life are you pretending to know more than you do? Where has overconfidence led you astray? Where might intellectual humility open doors that have remained closed? The path to wisdom begins with these questions. It starts with the recognition that knowing what you don't know is often more valuable than knowing what you do know. And here's the beautiful part. As you embrace this mindset of continuous learning, something magical happens. Your confidence eventually returns, but it's different now. It's not the hollow confidence of the novice who doesn't know what they don't know. It's the earned confidence of someone who has walked through the valley of despair and emerged on the other side with genuine understanding. This is the confidence that will sustain you through challenges. This is the wisdom that will guide your decisions when others are floundering in their overconfidence. This is the foundation upon which lasting success is built. The journey from ignorance to wisdom isn't a straight line. It's not about accumulating facts and information. It's about developing an increasingly accurate model of reality, one that acknowledges complexity, embraces nuance, and remains open to revision. And this journey never ends. Even the greatest masters in any field continue to learn, continue to question, continue to refine their understanding, because they know that the moment you believe you've arrived at complete knowledge is the moment you begin to slide backward. The truth is, none of us will ever know everything. The universe is too vast, reality too complex, knowledge too expansive for any single human mind to fully comprehend. But by recognizing this limitation, by making peace with the permanent gap between what we know and what there is to know, we free ourselves to keep growing. And growth, my friends, is what life is all about. Not the static state of having arrived, but the dynamic process of becoming more than we were yesterday. So I challenge you, embrace the Dunning-Kruger Effect, not as something to avoid, but as something to understand and navigate. Recognize when you're at risk of overestimating your knowledge. Welcome the humbling moments when you realize how much more there is to learn, and celebrate the journey of continuous growth that these realizations make possible. Because true wisdom isn't about knowing everything. It's about knowing what you don't know and having the courage to admit it. Think about one area in your life right now where you might have fallen into the trap of overconfidence. One domain where you've assumed expertise without putting in the necessary work to earn it. Can you identify that area? Can you commit to approaching it with fresh eyes and a learner's mindset? Now that we've identified where the illusion of knowledge might be holding us back, let's examine the actual pathway from incompetence to mastery, because understanding this journey changes everything. Have you ever watched a child learn to walk? First, they don't even know they can't walk. Then they discover they want to walk but keep falling down. Next comes that wobbly, uncertain phase where they're walking but constantly catching themselves. And finally, they walk without thinking about it at all. This progression isn't unique to toddlers learning to walk. It's the universal pattern of how humans develop any skill or knowledge. Psychologists call these the 4 stages of competence, and they explain exactly why the Dunning-Kruger effect happens, and more importantly, how to overcome it. The first stage is what we call unconscious incompetence. You don't know what you don't know. Think about the person who's never tried to play a musical instrument, never cooked anything beyond toast, or never tried to start a business. They're not just beginners, they're pre-beginners. They lack even the awareness of what's involved. This is the most dangerous stage because it's where false confidence thrives. When you have no concept of what mastery involves, it's easy to think, how hard could it be? I remember talking to a young man who told me he was going to become a millionaire in 6 months through real estate investments. When I asked about his experience, his study, his mentors, he looked at me blankly. I watched some videos, he said. It seems pretty straightforward. That's unconscious incompetence talking. And many people never move beyond this stage because they're not willing to face the discomfort that comes next. The second stage is conscious incompetence. This is where your eyes are open to the magnitude of what you don't know. It's when the aspiring musician realizes they can't naturally form chords. When the novice public speaker becomes acutely aware of their trembling hands and cracking. When the beginning entrepreneur faces their first significant setback. This stage feels terrible. It's humbling, often embarrassing, and filled with frustration. Your confidence plummets, And that valley of despair I mentioned earlier, this is it, right here. How many potentially great musicians quit after their first few painful lessons? How many would-be entrepreneurs walk away after their first failure? The valley claims countless victims because few people are prepared for how uncomfortable this stage feels. But those who press through, those who accept the temporary discomfort of conscious incompetence, they discover something remarkable waiting on the other side. The third stage is conscious competence. This is where you can perform successfully, but it requires focused concentration. You can play the song, but you have to think about each chord change. You can deliver the presentation, but you're mentally checking off talking points. You can manage your business, but you're constantly referring to systems and processes you've created. At this stage, your confidence begins to rebuild, but it's different now. It's not the hollow confidence of ignorance. It's the earned confidence of developing skill. You know what excellence looks like, and you can see your progress toward it. Most people who achieve moderate success in any field reach this third stage and remain there. They become good enough and plateau. But those who push further, those who commit to the disciplines of daily improvement, they enter the fourth stage, which changes everything. The fourth stage is unconscious competence. This is mastery. It's when your skills have become so internalized that they're automatic. The concert pianist who interprets the music while their fingers find the keys without conscious direction. The veteran speaker who connects authentically with an audience without thinking about techniques. The seasoned entrepreneur who instinctively recognizes patterns and opportunities that others miss. At this stage, something fascinating happens with confidence. The true master often appears less confident than the novice, at least in how they express themselves. While the beginner proclaims certainty, the master acknowledges nuance. While the novice speaks in absolutes, the expert uses qualifiers and recognizes exceptions. This is why actual experts often seem less impressive at first glance than those with just enough knowledge to sound confident. The master knows enough to know what they don't know. So the critical question becomes, how do you navigate this journey? How do you push through the valley of despair to reach genuine mastery? First, you must understand that the discomfort of conscious incompetence is not a signal to quit. It's a signal that you're growing. When you feel that frustration, that embarrassment of not being as good as you thought you'd be, recognize it as a necessary and valuable part of the journey. I've watched countless people interpret these feelings as evidence they should give up. This isn't for me, they say. I don't have natural talent for this. But what they're really saying is, I'm not willing to endure the discomfort of growth. The difference between those who achieve mastery and those who don't isn't talent. It's tolerance for the discomfort of being a beginner. Second, you need to implement the philosophy of Kaizen, continuous, incremental improvement. The masters in any field aren't trying to take enormous leaps. They're focused on getting just 1% better every day. Over time, these small improvements compound into remarkable results. Consider this. If you improve just 1% each day for a year, you'll end up 37 times better than when you started. Not 37% better, 37 times better. That's the power of compound growth applied to your skills and knowledge. But this approach requires patience, another quality in short supply in our world of instant gratification. We want to be experts now. We want success now. We want recognition now. But mastery doesn't work that way. It never has and it never will. The third key is structured practice. Not just any practice, deliberate practice. This means constantly pushing yourself just beyond your current abilities, receiving immediate feedback, making adjustments, and then repeating the process. It's not about mindlessly performing the same actions over and over. It's about thoughtful repetition with the specific intent to improve. I once spoke with a celebrated violin teacher who told me something I'll never forget. He said, I can tell within 5 minutes whether a student will achieve mastery. It has nothing to do with their initial skill level. It's all about how they practice. The ones who become great aren't practicing to confirm what they can already do. They're practicing at the edge of their ability, where they make mistakes, where they struggle, where they grow. The fourth element is proper mentorship. Find someone who has already walked the path you're on. Someone who can see your blind spots, correct your form, challenge your assumptions, and hold you accountable to your own potential. A good mentor doesn't just teach you skills, they shorten your learning curve by helping you avoid common pitfalls. They provide an accurate map of the territory ahead. And perhaps most importantly, they show you what's possible when you commit to the journey from incompetence to mastery. Think about your own journey right now, in whatever field you're pursuing growth, your career, your relationships, your health, your finances. Which stage are you in? Are you unconsciously incompetent, not even aware of what you don't know? Are you consciously incompetent, feeling the frustration of recognizing your limitations? Are you consciously competent, able to perform but only with focused effort? Or have you reached unconscious competence, where your skills have become second nature? Wherever you are on that continuum, understand that it's exactly where you should be, as long as you're moving forward. The only failure is thinking you've arrived when you haven't even started the journey. Now, let's talk about what this means for your life in practical terms. How do you apply these concepts to achieve actual results? First, adopt the mindset of a perpetual student. The day you stop learning is the day you start declining. Make it a non-negotiable part of your daily routine to learn something new related to your field. Read books, listen to experts, take courses, seek out challenges that stretch your capabilities. I've noticed that the most successful people I've met are voracious learners. They're not just casually interested in their field, they're obsessed with mastering it. They study it, they practice it, they reflect on it. They're constantly asking, how can I get better at this? Second, develop systems for receiving honest feedback. Our brains are remarkably skilled at self-deception. We need external perspectives to see ourselves clearly. This might mean recording yourself and reviewing your performance. It might mean joining a mastermind group where peers challenge your thinking. It might mean hiring a coach who will tell you the truth about where you stand and what you need to improve. Whatever form it takes, make sure you're regularly getting unfiltered feedback about your performance, not praise feedback. There's a crucial difference. Third, track your progress. Mastery is a long game, and it's easy to become discouraged when you don't see immediate results. By documenting where you started and how far you've come, you create evidence of your growth that will sustain you through the inevitable plateaus and setbacks. Keep a journal, take photos, record videos, create tangible proof of your progress that you can review when your motivation wanes. Fourth, build resilience through proper framing of failures. Failure isn't the opposite of success, it's part of success. Every master has failed more times than the novice has even tried. When you make a mistake, when you fall short, when you face rejection, train yourself to ask, what can I learn from this? How can this make me better? This simple reframing transforms failures from evidence that you should quit into stepping stones toward mastery. I remember talking with an accomplished surgeon who told me about his first year of residency. I was terrible, he said. My hands would shake. I'd break into a sweat with the simplest procedures. I seriously considered quitting medicine altogether. What kept him going? I had a mentor who told me that everyone feels this way. Everyone goes through this stage. The only difference between those who become great surgeons and those who don't is who decides to push through the discomfort. Today, he performs complex procedures that save lives. All because he understood that his initial incompetence wasn't a permanent condition. It was a temporary stage on the journey to mastery. The fifth principle is perhaps the most important. You must fall in love with the process, not just the results. If you're only focused on the destination, the money, the recognition, the achievement, you'll never sustain the daily disciplines required for mastery. The masters in any field genuinely love what they do. They find joy in the practice itself, not just in the outcomes it produces. They would do it even if no one was watching, even if no one was paying, even if no one ever knew. This doesn't mean every moment is pleasurable. There will be frustration. There will be struggle. There will be days when you question everything. But underlying these momentary experiences is a fundamental enjoyment of the craft itself. Find that joy in your chosen path. If it's not there, you may need to reconsider your direction. Life is too short to pursue mastery in something that doesn't light you up inside. Now let's address a common misconception about mastery. Many people believe that reaching the highest levels of performance requires some sort of inborn talent or natural gift. Either you have it or you don't, they say. The research simply doesn't support this view. What appears to be natural talent is almost always the result of thousands of hours of deliberate practice, often beginning at an early age. Yes, certain genetic factors might give someone a slight edge in specific domains, but the difference between good and great, between mediocre and masterful, is almost never about natural ability. It's about commitment to the process of improvement over time. This is actually liberating news. It means that mastery is available to anyone willing to do the work, anyone willing to push through the valley of despair, anyone willing to embrace the discomfort of growth rather than the comfort of mediocrity. Consider the implications of this truth for your life. What could you achieve if you committed to mastery rather than settling for good enough? What impact could you have? What legacy could you create? The journey from incompetence to mastery isn't just about developing skills, it's about developing character. It's about becoming the kind of person who follows through, who does the work when no one is watching, who refuses to be defined by initial failures or limitations. This character development becomes the foundation for everything else in your life. The disciplines you learn in pursuing mastery in one area transfer to every other area. The resilience you build, the patience you develop, the work ethic you establish, these become part of who you are, not just what you do. And here's something few people talk about. The greatest reward of mastery isn't external. It's not the money, though that may come. It's not the recognition, though that may follow. The greatest reward is who you become in the process, the internal transformation that happens as you push beyond your perceived limitations and discover what you're truly capable of. I've never met a master in any field who regretted the sacrifices they made for their craft. I've never heard someone say, "I wish I hadn't put in all those hours perfecting my skills." But I've met countless people who regret not committing to the path of mastery when they had the chance. Don't let that be your story. Commit now to the journey from incompetence to mastery. Embrace the discomfort of the early stages. Celebrate small victories along the way. Find joy in the daily disciplines. Surround yourself with others who share your commitment to excellence. And most importantly, remember that the Dunning-Kruger effect is not your enemy. It's simply a pattern to be aware of and navigate wisely. When you feel absolutely certain about your abilities, and ask, is this justified confidence based on demonstrated mastery, or could this be the false confidence of early knowledge? When your confidence plummets as you recognize how much you don't know, remind yourself, this is normal, this is necessary, this is growth. And when you finally reach the stage where your skills become second nature, maintain the humility of the true master, who knows that even after decades of study and practice, there is still more to learn, still ways to improve, still heights to reach. The journey never truly ends. There is no final destination called mastery. There is only the ongoing process of becoming better today than you were yesterday, more skilled this year than you were last year. This is the path that leads not just to success, but to fulfillment. Not just to achievement, but to significance. Not just to doing remarkable things, but to becoming a remarkable person. So we've examined the path from incompetence to mastery, but here's the paradox that changes everything. The truly competent often underestimate themselves, while the incompetent overestimate themselves. This isn't just interesting psychology. It's a profound insight that can transform your approach to achievement and success. Think about that for a moment. The more you know, the more you realize what you don't know. The further you advance in any field, the more clearly you see the vastness of what remains to be learned. This creates a fascinating situation where the most knowledgeable people are often the most humble about their knowledge. I call this the mastery paradox, and understanding it is critical for creating a life of authentic achievement. Ask yourself this question: would you rather be actually good at something while thinking you're just okay, or be terrible at something while believing you're excellent? The answer seems obvious when framed this way. Yet many people unknowingly choose the latter option every day. Why does this happen? Because our egos crave certainty and validation more than they crave truth. We prefer the comfort of thinking we're already there over the discomfort of acknowledging how far we have to go. But here's the liberating truth. The moment you embrace accurate self-assessment, even when it's humbling, you step onto the path of authentic achievement. You begin living in reality rather than illusion, and only in reality can you build something meaningful and lasting. Consider the difference between appearance and essence, between seeming successful and being successful, between impressing others and actually creating value. I've met people who drive expensive cars they can't afford, wear designer clothes purchased on credit, and talk endlessly about their success, despite having achieved very little of substance. They're creating the appearance of achievement without the essence. And I've met true achievers, people who have built profitable businesses that serve thousands of customers, who have mastered crafts that bring beauty and function to the world, who have developed deep expertise that solves meaningful problems. Many of these people drive modest cars, dress simply, and rarely mention their accomplishments unless asked directly. The contrast couldn't be more stark. One group is focused on looking good, the other is focused on being good. One is concerned with perception, the other with reality. Which path are you on? Are you building a life of authentic achievement, or are you merely creating the appearance of success? The answer to this question will determine not just your external results, but your internal experience of life. Authentic achievement begins with honest self-evaluation, not the kind that tears you down or makes you feel inadequate, but the kind that accurately assesses where you are so you can strategically move forward. This means cultivating the habit of seeking feedback, real feedback, not just validation. When was the last time you asked someone you respect to tell you honestly where you could improve? When was the last time you invited constructive criticism without becoming defensive? Most people avoid this kind of feedback like the plague. They surround themselves with people who tell them what they want to hear, rather than what they need to hear. They create echo chambers that reinforce their existing beliefs, rather than challenging them to grow. But the authentic achiever does the opposite. They actively seek out those who will tell them the truth, especially when that truth is uncomfortable. They recognize that feedback isn't an attack, it's information, and information properly applied leads to improvement. I remember speaking with the CEO of a company that had just experienced its best year ever. Instead of celebrating, do you know what he did? He brought in consultants to identify weaknesses in the business that weren't apparent during good times. He told me, success can mask problems. I want to find and fix those problems before they become crises. That's the mindset of authentic achievement, always looking for ways to improve, even especially when things seem to be going well. This approach requires intellectual humility, the quality we discussed earlier, but it also requires something more: emotional security, the confidence to hear criticism without taking it personally, the self-assurance to acknowledge weaknesses without feeling diminished by them. This kind of emotional security doesn't come naturally to most of us. Our egos are fragile things, easily bruised by the suggestion that we're not as good as we think we are. But emotional security can be developed over time through consistent practice. Start small. The next time someone offers a suggestion or points out an error in your work, resist the urge to defend or explain. Simply say, "Thank you for that feedback. I'll think about it." Then actually think about it, separating the emotional response from the informational content. Over time, you'll discover that feedback becomes less threatening. You'll begin to see it as valuable data rather than personal commentary. And this shift will accelerate your growth in ways you can hardly imagine. The second element of authentic achievement is developing what I call a reality-based success philosophy. This means basing your actions and expectations on how the world actually works, not on how you wish it worked or how someone told you it works. Too many people operate from success philosophies that have no connection to reality. They believe that positive thinking alone will manifest their desires. They think they can bypass the fundamentals and still achieve lasting results. They expect overnight success in fields that require years of dedicated practice. These fantasy-based approaches inevitably lead to disappointment, because reality doesn't bend to our wishes or expectations. It operates according to principles that are largely beyond our control. But here's the good news. While we can't change these principles, we can understand them and align ourselves with them. We can work with reality rather than against it. What does this look like in practice? It means recognizing that meaningful achievement takes time. It means accepting that there are no shortcuts to mastery. It means understanding that success leaves clues, and studying those who have succeeded before you rather than trying to reinvent the wheel. It also means focusing on what you can control and releasing attachment to what you can't. You can control your effort, your attitude, your response to setbacks. You can't control external circumstances, other people's actions, or the timing of results. The authentic achiever pours their energy into the controllable factors and accepts the uncontrollable ones as part of the landscape they must navigate. This philosophy isn't just practical, it's liberating. When you stop fighting reality and start working with it, You free up enormous amounts of mental and emotional energy that can be directed toward actual achievement rather than resistance and frustration. The third component of authentic achievement is what I call the discipline of continuous improvement. This is different from the frantic pursuit of the next thing, the next goal, the next level. It's about getting incrementally better at what matters most, day after day, year after year. In a culture obsessed with overnight success stories and dramatic transformations, this approach might seem boring. It lacks the excitement of pursuing the latest shortcut or the newest hack, but it works consistently, predictably, powerfully. Consider the difference between someone who jumps from opportunity to opportunity, always chasing the next big thing, and someone who commits to mastering one important skill or business or relationship over decades. Who do you think achieves more in the long run? The research is clear. Specialization beats generalization for meaningful achievement. Going an inch wide and a mile deep creates more value than going a mile wide and an inch deep. This doesn't mean you can't have multiple interests or skills, but it does mean that authentic achievement usually comes from sustained focus rather than scattered attention. What are you committed to improving consistently over time? What skill, what business, what relationship deserves your sustained attention and effort? Identify that focus and then build daily disciplines around it. Small, consistent actions compound over time into remarkable results. A daily writing practice turns into a book. Regular deposits into an investment account grow into financial security. Consistent kindness and attention transform a struggling relationship into a thriving one. The fourth pillar of authentic achievement is surrounding yourself with people who tell you the truth. Your environment, particularly the people in it, shapes your thinking more than you realize. If you're surrounded by people who exaggerate their successes, hide their failures, and prioritize appearance over substance, you'll likely develop those same habits. But if you deliberately build relationships with people who value truth over comfort, growth over stasis, and authenticity over impression management, you'll naturally move in that direction yourself. This isn't always easy. Truth tellers aren't always popular. They challenge our illusions and disrupt our comfortable self-deceptions, but they are essential for authentic achievement. Look at your current circle of relationships. Are these people committed to truth, even when it's uncomfortable? Do they challenge you to grow, or do they validate your excuses? Do they exemplify authentic achievement, or are they more concerned with appearances? You don't need to end friendships or sever family ties, but you do need to be intentional about whose you listen to most closely. Seek out mentors and peers who embody the qualities you aspire to develop. Their influence will shape your thinking and accelerate your growth more than you can imagine. The fifth element of authentic achievement is perhaps the most profound: creating a legacy through work that matters. Not work that merely makes money or generates applause, but work that adds genuine value to others' lives. When you strip away the external trappings of success, the recognition, the rewards, the status, what remains is the actual impact of your work. Did you make something better? Did you solve a real problem? Did you create something of lasting value? These questions cut to the heart of authentic achievement. They move us beyond self-focused metrics like income or status to impact-focused metrics like contribution and service. I've noticed something fascinating about this approach. When you focus primarily on creating value for others, the traditional rewards of success, including financial rewards, tend to follow naturally. But when you focus primarily on obtaining those rewards for yourself, they often remain elusive. This isn't some mystical principle. It's simple economics. The marketplace rewards those who create the most value for others. The more problems you solve, the more needs you meet, the more value you create, the more you'll be rewarded, financially and otherwise. But there's an even deeper truth here. When your work is genuinely focused on contribution rather than acquisition, you experience a level of fulfillment that transcends any external reward. You connect with something larger than yourself, a purpose that gives meaning to your efforts and resilience during difficult times. So ask yourself, what problem are you solving? What value are you creating? How are others better off because of your work? If you can't answer these questions clearly, it might be time to reevaluate your direction. The final component of authentic achievement, the one that integrates all the others, is what I call living from the inside out. This means allowing your inner values and convictions to drive your outer actions and choices, rather than allowing external pressures or appearances to dictate your internal state. Most people live from the outside in. They let circumstances determine their emotions. They let others' opinions shape their decisions. They let cultural norms define their values. As a result, they're constantly reacting to external forces rather than responding from a stable internal foundation. The authentic achiever reverses this pattern. They clarify their values first, then make choices that align with those values regardless of external pressures. They develop convictions based on careful thought and research, then stand by those convictions even when they're unpopular. They decide who they want to be, then consistently act in alignment with that vision. This approach requires courage. It means sometimes standing alone when everyone else is following the crowd. It means making choices that others might not understand or approve of. It means being willing to be temporarily misunderstood for the sake of long-term integrity. But the rewards of this courage are immense. When you live from the inside out, you experience a congruence between your beliefs and your actions that creates profound peace. You develop a reputation for integrity that attracts opportunities and relationships of the highest quality. And perhaps most importantly, you build achievements that reflect who you truly are, not who you think you should be, or who others want you to be. So as we conclude our exploration of the Dunning-Kruger Effect and its implications for your life and success, remember this: the goal isn't to appear competent or successful. The goal is to be competent and successful, not just in the eyes of others, but according to your own well-considered standards of achievement. Don't be fooled by the illusion of knowledge. Don't be discouraged by the valley of despair. Don't be seduced by the appearance of success without its substance. Instead, commit to the path of authentic achievement. Embrace honest self-evaluation. Develop a reality-based success philosophy. Practice the discipline of continuous improvement. Surround yourself with truth-tellers. Create a legacy through work that matters. And live from the inside out, allowing your deepest values to guide your choices and actions. This path isn't the easiest. It doesn't offer shortcuts, or quick fixes, or overnight transformations. But it leads to achievements that are real, rewards that are earned, and a life that is genuinely your own. The choice is yours. Will you pursue the comfortable illusion of competence? Or will you embrace the sometimes uncomfortable reality of growth? Will you settle for appearing successful? Or will you do the work required for authentic achievement? Your answer to these questions will determine not just what you accomplish, but who you become. Choose wisely, choose courageously, and remember, the greatest achievement isn't what you get, but who you become in the process of creating something that matters. The journey continues. The opportunity is now. The decision is yours.